Hey y'all, it is time for another YouTube edition of Talk About Books Thursday, and I apologize, it has been a long time since I have done this over here on YouTube. Gonna try to do better about this in the future, but it's all gonna depend on how the school year goes, because I am a teacher, and I have a feeling this school year is gonna be off to a rough start, so maybe I can keep this up, maybe I can't. We'll just have to wait and see. So it is July 24th. Earlier this week, I hit 50 books for the year. I'm actually at 52 now. Very happy with that number. I didn't actually set myself a goal this year for how many books I wanted to read because I didn't want that pressure, but I feel like I'm kind of on track, maybe a little bit behind from where I was last year, but I have been enjoying the books more rather than rushing through to get them done to meet a quota. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the 2 books I've DNF'd this year, my favorite book from each month, and the books that have had really 2 in particular books that have had the most impact on me. So let's talk about the 2 books I've DNF'd first. The first one was called Julia, and I was so excited about that book because it was a retelling of 1984 from the perspective of Julia, and I really wanted to like it. And I just had to put it down because Julia at the start was painted to be so boy crazy that it was annoying. And I wanted to stick with it because I had a feeling she was going to show some maturity and some character development later on in the story. I just couldn't stick with it long enough to get there. Maybe I will pick it up again in the future. I don't know, but I just had to DNF that one because it drove me nuts. The other one that I DNF'd was Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, and I had gone back and forth for a long time about whether or not to read it. It looked really good. The cover was pretty. The blurb sounded interesting, but I was hesitant because it was Cassandra Clare. I had started her Shadowhunter series years ago, really enjoyed the first couple of books, and then got bored with it because I just felt they just got increasingly worse as the series went on, and I just never finished it. And so I was hesitant, but I found it at the library, so I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. And it was one that I was enjoying, and yet I kind of kept thinking about DNFing it. So I don't know how much I was actually enjoying it. And then I got about 40 to 50 pages to the end. I was almost done, and I had to DNF it for a pretty petty reason. And that was because this was a fantasy set in a complete fantasy world, and one of the characters told the other one to F around and find out. Sometimes when a book uses those slang terms in a fantasy world, it just drives me crazy. Sometimes I can get past it. If I'm really enjoying the characters or the story, I can get past it, but this time I just couldn't, and I DNF'd that one real fast. I did find some interesting things about that book, though, the way she pulled things from our culture, our world, the way, I think it's the Ashtari, they were clearly supposed to be Jewish. I thought that was interesting. And you could see influences from different cultures in our world that she used to incorporate into that one, which I was totally fine with that. I found that interesting, but the use of the slang phrase F around and find out just did me in. I immediately closed it and said no and went on about my business. Now let's talk about my favorite book from each month, January through June. I'm not going to give you one for July yet since I'm not done reading for the month. So let's get into it. My first one, a lot of y'all may not be happy with me about, but it was my favorite of the month, and that was Onyx Storm. And I know what y'all are going to say. A lot of people don't like it for a lot of reasons, and I get it. I do. I understand why y'all don't like it. I enjoy the characters. I love dragons. So I'm going to read about the dragons. The dragons are really the best part. And I really thought her writing improved in this one. I thought it was a lot better. The first 2 books, some of the writing could be cringy at times. This one I felt was much less cringy. And I enjoyed this story more. I also enjoyed seeing the expansion. I think she has this story plotted out well. And so kind of learning things as the characters learn them. or ahead of the characters has been really interesting. I have enjoyed this series so far. I know a lot of people don't care for it. A lot of people don't care for the author, but I liked this book. All right. February. And this one actually could go with the books that have impacted me the most this year as well. And this was James. This is a retelling of Huck Finn from the perspective of Jim. And oh, this book is fantastic. It is beautifully done. And the thing that sticks with me the most in this book is the power that a pencil and a few scraps of paper can have. That's kind of central to this book. It's kind of a central image, and I just kind of keep coming back to that. And this book is definitely going to be one that sticks with me for a long time. So if you guys have not read James, I highly recommend this one. All right, March may come as no surprise. Sunrise on the Reaping. This was my favorite for March. For a while, I was thinking it was going to be my favorite of the year. It might have gotten knocked off of the pedestal. We'll see once December 31st rolls around where it ranks. I'm always a little nervous when a writer revisits a world that they've created and continues a series, especially years after it was originally written. I don't think I'm ever going to worry about that if Suzanne Collins puts out another Hunger Games book, because she has proven herself 10 times over. I thought Ballad was done really well. I know a lot of people didn't care for that one as much. I loved it. And I love this one even more. This is probably going to be my favorite of the whole Hunger Games series, unless she comes out with a few more. I don't expect her to, but I didn't expect this one. So we'll see. It depends, as a lot of people have pointed out, on what she has to say. And I do sometimes get frustrated, not with her, but with people that kind of miss the point, because she has some very serious themes in this book. And she's trying to call our attention to so many things. And sometimes people miss it in the midst of the story. I shouldn't be surprised by that because it happens a lot, but so many good themes in this one. The callbacks to the rest of the series, the tie-ins, the way it all connects. Beautifully done. I mean, she had me crying in the first few pages. This one was fantastic. All right, the month of April. I really loved The Lost Bookshop. This is what I call cozy magical realism, which always just makes me relaxed, makes me happy. I enjoy reading, magical realism, any kind of magical realism, but the cozy is probably my favorite, just because they're feel-good stories for the most part. There's that little hint of magic to them, and this one, the bookshop comes and goes based on when you need it. And I thought that was a fantastic concept as well, so I really enjoyed this one. All right, May, and this one for me is going to be one of my contenders for favorite book of the year, hands down, and that was His Face is the Sun. First of all, let's appreciate how utterly gorgeous this book is. I mean, it is so beautiful. I love this book so much. So I picked it up originally from the store because of how pretty this cover and the edges were, and then I got to looking at it and I'm like, well, this kind of looks Egyptian. And it is Egyptian inspired. So this is a fantasy series that is inspired by Egyptian mythology. I've always been fascinated by Egyptian mythology. So when I saw this, I mean, come on, I had to get my hands on this book, and it did not disappoint. So the things I love about this book, the characters, it switches POVs, and I enjoyed every character equally. A lot of times when you have multiple POVs, there's always that one character that you get bored with, and you just kind of trudge through their chapters until you get to the characters that you like. That did not happen in this book. Every one of them was a compelling and relatable character. I loved them all. Actually, I will say I have a favorite, and that would probably be the cat, but just because it's a cat. Also, the world building was absolutely beautiful. The incorporation of the Egyptian mythology with some of the changes and things that she did, absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait for book 2 in this series, and I don't know when that's coming, but I will be pre-ordering and eagerly awaiting that when it's available. All right, for June, I kind of had two. One of them, though, I'm going to list as my most impactful. So I'm going to list this one as my favorite for June. This was Friedrich Bachmann's My Friends. I love Friedrich Bachmann anyway. Some of his books I've not cared for as much, but I'll usually pick his books up and read them when they come out. And a lot of them I have really enjoyed, and I really loved this one. This is really found family, even though, you know, it says my friends, they're really more like family. They're the people that, you know, it's about finding people that stick with you, that understand you, especially if no one else in the world seems to. Finding those people, sticking with them no matter what. It is about grief, loss, dealing with trauma, growing past that, and taking care of each other. And I loved it. All right. So now for the two that have had the most impact on me this year. Like I said, James had a lot of impact on me. That book is absolutely fantastic. So many wonderful thoughts and themes in that book. But let me talk about the two that have impacted me the most. The first one being Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And I don't have that one because it is a library book. I need to get a copy of it. I probably will read it again. I know a lot of people DNF'd that book, and they tend to DNF it because the protagonist is such a horrible human being, and I get that, but that was the point. The point was that she was supposed to be horrible, because she's really, I don't want to say the worst of humanity, but she points out some of the negatives of humanity, and sometimes we need to be reminded of that. I'll talk about, when I talk about the next book, I had done a TikTok the other day and I said, you know, sometimes we need to read hard books because we need to be reminded sometimes of the negatives so that we can learn from them. I thought Yellowface was masterfully done. She is a horrible character. If you guys don't know about the story, she is a white writer who steals a manuscript from her recently deceased Asian American friend who was a much more successful writer than her. She passes the book off as her own. And she comes to a place where she actually convinces herself that the book is hers. In her mind, she truly believes that that manuscript was really hers because she took it and polished it, changed it up, cut some things out, added some things, and she thinks that that makes the book hers. And really believed that. So it had a lot of interesting things to say about humanity, about the way we treat each other, how we learn to justify things. And also, it deals a lot with the toxicity of social media. And I think that's always an important reminder because we sometimes don't realize the impact of the words that we say online. And that was a good reminder of that. So the other book is actually one that I just finished. And this is this one, The Song of the Blue Bottle Tree. This is set in Southwest Arkansas in 1967. And I picked it up because that's where I grew up. And this is a hard book to read emotionally because it deals with some really heavy themes. But it is so important to read books like that, to remind us that even though the book was fiction, the things that were happening to the characters happen in real life for some people. And I think we need to be reminded of that sometimes, especially as readers. I think reading does a lot to help us be more empathetic, and a book like this one absolutely should do that. I thought it was beautifully written. It was nice to see the characters that deserved it get their comeuppance, although there was one that didn't get enough of a comeuppance, I don't think. But I thought it was beautifully done. So yeah, that's my reading update so far. If you liked this video, please leave me a comment. Let me know what your favorite book of the year so far is. Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you want to see additional videos, and check out my TikTok page, also at Mama Sanders Reads, because I also post about books over there. Happy Thursday.